I've experienced many things on Springwatch today. The chattering of beautiful birds, the grooming of hares and the calming of ruffled feathers. And then I carried on walking past Michaela having her makeup done.
There's no making up the action on tonight's show. We've got dive-bombing bats. We've got contented kits. And there's a stick stealer in the colony.
And we're on the Isles of Scilly, hunting for a totally different sort of stick.
And I'll be on the beach, combing for jellies. It can only mean one thing.
It's Springwatch!
Hello and welcome to Springwatch 2017, coming to you for the third week from the National Trust Sherborne Park Estate here in Gloucestershire. And I have to say, Michaela, it is a particularly fine evening.
I know, look at this, it's fantastic,
No rain.
isn't it? And look at this, Chris, there just happens to be a couple of bales of straw in the middle of the field for us to sit on. That's an
Great good
absolutely
fortune.
marvellous thing, isn't it?
Absolutely
Marvellous.
great good fortune.
Let's start today with a quick whip round some of our live cameras, and we're going to start with the red kites. Let's take a look at them. As you know, we've got red kites, 3 chicks, 4.5 weeks. Oh, look at that in the sunlight.
Bathed
Oh, that looks
in warm
beautiful.
light. Our kestrels too, up in the church tower in the village, they're panting due to the sunlight. Look at this, the sun's blazing through that nook in the church there, and they're getting a bit overheated.
What about our swallows? They're in the barn, and even they've got a little shaft of light. I wonder what they're looking at. They look very interested in something.
And then our wrens, again, in the barn close to them, and actually built into a swallow's nest. There are 5 of them in that nest. I'm rather pleased I'm not the wren at the back, Michaela.
I think they probably rotate. It would only be fair to, wouldn't it? Well, that's a quick whip round, but now let's have a proper look at some of the nests. Let's start with one of the prettiest nests, I think. It's the grey wagtail nest. Let's have a look. I mean, look at that. It's so pretty. It's in the brickwork there by the old water wheel. All the chicks look like they're sleeping, actually. They're quite hunkered down, aren't they? There are 5 chicks in there, 7 days old. Oh, look.
I think we might be getting a feed here. Or was that a...
What was that? I think that was a bit of a false attempt there,
It
wasn't
may
it?
not have
Fly
even been a
past,
wagtail, but they
yes.
thought it was, didn't they? They thought they were going to get some food there.
They have been fed very well, though. Let's have a look at what's been going on today. They eat a lot of mayflies. That's the main prey. You can see a mayfly struggling away here. And look at that beautiful reflection of the grey wagtail. It spots the mayfly, no trouble at all, catching it and taking it to the nest, wagging that tail. Feeds the chicks. As I say, they've been very well fed, but mainly by the female, which is this one. Beak full of mayflies. Looks a bit tatty, Chris.
She's looking very tatty on the hair, isn't she?
She's been doing all the hard work, though. But look, what goes in one end has to come out. But look what she does. This is amazing because she flies quite some distance to make sure that she gets rid of that fecal sac and hides it somewhere far away from the nest. But it's great to see them. 5 chicks, 7 days old. They've got at least another 7 days before they fledge, but they're all looking good so far.
And we have another nest down here. In fact, just in the hedgerow, about 18 metres away over there, we can go live to our blackbird's nest. Let's see what they're up to at the moment. We've got 5 chicks in here as well. And look at that, Michaela, they're doing a bit of gulating, gula fluttering as well. They're warm this evening. They're not there looking for food. That is them, rather like the kestrels, overheating. But they've been very busy today bringing all sorts of food in, lots of earthworms. Even here, when we're not in a classic garden, of course, they're feeding lots of worms amongst a range of other inverts. Look at that mouthful that the females brought in there. All of those youngsters stretching up as high as they possibly can, all clamouring to get the food. The bird you can hear singing is not the blackbird. Curiously, this bush is a song post for a song thrush. I wonder if they'll grow up confused Some birds learn the song that they're going to sing in their future life from their own adults whilst they're still in the nest. So these young blackbirds are being serenaded almost constantly by a song thrush. They may end up singing the wrong song.
Oh, that's not great. I love the way they stand up, though. I mean, they really stretch. It's like a contest of who's got the longest neck. It's brilliant. I love it. In that hedge as well, though, we've got a nest of chaffinches, so let's have a look at them. Very close, actually, to the blackbirds. Sometimes the birds get confused when they see the other adult come by. Oh, look at them. Little fluffy head there. Now, how many chicks are in there? Well, it looks like there are just 2, and we did have 3, so let's have a look at what happened today. They were ready to fledge. They're being very well fed. That's the female. The male, though, was hanging around with food a little bit away from the nest, trying to entice them out. And at 11:32, one of the chicks got very brave, decided to go and see Dad, and was rewarded with a little bit of food. So we thought that was it. We thought, great, it's fledged. But at 11:59, it defledged, and that's that chick right in the middle of the nest again.
Hold on a minute. Defledged. Is that an ornithological term?
I think it might be after tonight. But anyway, this went on for the rest of the morning and the early afternoon. It was in, it was out, out, in, shaking it all about. Then at 2:38, it actually decided that it was time to leave the nest. The other 2 are still there, as we saw in that live shot, but I don't think it'll be long before they go. Beautiful evening, maybe they'll go now. Keep your eyes on the live cameras.
But I favour tomorrow morning at this point.
Yes, I think tomorrow morning would be better.
But that hedgerow where they're nesting over there is a fantastic hedgerow. It's not been flailed to within an inch of its life. It's not some horrid picket stump. It's billowing with branches which act as those song posts for the birds. And of course, at the base of it, there's lots of vegetation, home for small mammals. When Dawn Scott and I were doing the sampling here, we caught a yellow-necked mouse just over there, Michaela, literally just over there in that hedgerow. So a suitable place for our barn owls to go hunting, I'm sure. Let's go live to their nest now, which is, again, it's not too far away from where we are. The adult is absent, the female's popped out. I think at this point she's probably roosting in the barn, finding some space away from her rowdy youngsters who are sleeping off a number of voles that they had last night.
Or maybe she's out hunting, because we've set a couple of our cameramen a challenge tonight. We tried it on Monday and we did actually see a little glimpse of our barn owl hunting, but tonight we're going to see if we can really get it and get it in a beautiful sunlit evening. So we've got Pete and Mark out there. Let's go first of all to Pete's camera. So Pete's going to see if he can see our barn owl hunting in this field. Loads of sheep. And then let's have a look at Mark's camera. And Mark is in the field as well, and he can see the barn itself. So we'll be able to see if we see a barn owl hunting, that is definitely our barn owl, because he'll be able to see it go in and out of the barn. So that's the challenge. If we manage it, we'll certainly show it to you.
And there's a good chance, if times are tough or they've got lots of hungry mouths to feed, they will come out in the late afternoon and early evening. You see them flying around in sunlight. It's a real treat. But generally, watching nocturnal animals is, of course, difficult since we're nocturnal ourselves. And there's one particular group which are very tricky indeed, and that's the bats, of course. Now, often you can go out and you can see bats. You can stand by a river, you can stand in your garden, you can see them flittering around in the sky. But which species of bat are they? Well, with an enormous amount of expertise, you might be able to get 90% of them right, but not 100%. Well, not until now. The other night I went out with my good friend Gary Moore to test out a new device which I think is going to radically transform batting.
Here in the UK, we're lucky to have 18 species of bat. But because of their nocturnal habits, watching and identifying them can sometimes leave you in the dark. There are bits of tech that can help, but they can be unreliable and frustrating to use. But sound recordist Gary Moore has a new toy, and we've come to test it at a known roost for lesser horseshoe bats in Sherborne village.
Gary, I've got this bat detector here.
Yeah.
This is a classic bat detector. It's going to convert the high frequency sounds of the bats into lower frequencies that we can hear.
Yeah.
That's right, isn't it?
It is right, yeah.
But this is history, isn't it?
It is, well, hopefully it's history, Chris. I've got a new little bit of kit here. It's basically, it's just this tiny little device, and it allows any smartphone or any tablet to be turned into a bat detector. But not only is it a bat detector,
It identifies the bat for you.
It identifies the bat
We are going to pit these two devices against each other in a test of classic versus ultra-modern. All we need now are some bats.
What time is it now?
It's nearly 10:15.
10:15? You said 9:30.
I know, I thought we'd be in the pub by 11.
Oh, goodness me.
I thought we'd at least catch last orders.
Didn't see that one.
Yeah, look, Chris, mine's identified it.
What?
There, look.
Oh, look, and a picture of it as well. God, honestly, that's amazing. So it's recorded it, identified it, and shown you a little picture of its face.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And soon enough, we're witnessing a mass exodus from the roost.
Wow.
What a treat! But let's face it, we knew this was a roost of lesser horseshoes. This is more like shooting bats in a barrel than a true test for these detectors. It's time to move down to the river, where we know there are all kinds of bats, and identifying them to species level in the pitch black will be the ultimate test.
Right, here we are, Gary. This is the final showdown.
Okay.
Heterodyne versus the future. I'm getting a bat at 44.6 here, so if I consult my little bit of paper, hold on. 44.6. So it could be a common pipistrelle. It could also be a natteras. It could even be whiskered, actually.
Well, mine's identified it. Soprano.
Pipistrelle. Honestly. Oh, look. Common pipistrelle. Maybe the sopranos are hunting up here.
And the commons
are down there. When I was 10, the only place you saw that was on Star Trek.
Yeah.
And now it's allowing us to identify a bat to species level in the dark.
Yeah.
And we're not even seeing the bats. No. Dear Santa, I've been quite a good boy this year, and I'm really hoping that when you come down my chimney, you bring me one of these new-fangled bat detectors like what Gary has. Well, Gary, I'm sold.
Yeah?
Do you want my bat detector?
No, but I think you can...
£10?
No, you can
5?
keep that. No.
2? I'll chuck in a bit of paper.
All right. OK.
Come on.
Come on, let's get to
Pub's
bed then.
closed, we've got to go to bed.
I know, I did promise you last orders, didn't I?
Certainly. It's worth it, though. It's a fad gadget. Now, it is undeniably fantastic, but you don't need one of those gadgets to engage with and report bat sightings. The Bat Conservation Trust would love you to join in with their sunset, sunrise bat surveys, and you can find details of those on our website. But let's take a look at the bats that we were actually looking at there, because you couldn't see them all too clearly in our film. Let's look at this first one. These are common pipistrelles. All of these pictures have been taken by licensed bat workers, of course, as they're protected species. Next one we've got is soprano pipistrelle, so they're very closely related, and Gary and I were separating them by sound there. And then lastly, the curiously faced lesser horseshoe bat. These were the ones that were emerging from the roost, and they've got that curious nose there, which gives them their name, sort of horseshoe-shaped nose.
So that's what they look like, but how do they communicate? Well, they use echolocation. So they throw out a signal, it's a click, and when that click or that signal hits something, it bounces back and gives the bat information on how far away the object is, how big it is, what speed it's going at. And that's how they locate and catch their prey. It's got to be pretty efficient, because common pipistrelles, 3,000 insects they have to catch every night. It's a lot, isn't it? But why can't we hear it? Well, it's because it's at a high frequency, which is too high for our hearing range. This is our hearing range, 20 to 20,000 hertz. This is the blue whale. I mean, most of it we can hear, some of it's too low. Bats, most of it is too high. Pipistrelle, if you're much younger than Chris and I and have good hearing, then you could hear some of it. Most of it you can't hear. Noctules you won't hear. Lesser horseshoe, you haven't got a hope. So that's why we can't hear it.
OK, we can't hear it, but how effectively do the bats use it? Well, take a look at this. You know, here is a visual representation of the environment. And what we're trying to do here is to convert sound into images. That's the way that we perceive things. Now, hidden here in the picture is a gnat. Imagine that you're a bat hunting for this. You're emitting all of that sound. It's bouncing off of the trees, which is confusing your ability to find it, just as it does visually. For us, it's hard to see that gnat. But look at this. Here is a gnat out over the water. And we can see that much more clearly. And when the bats are using echolocation, because the water acts as an acoustic mirror, reflecting their sound perfectly, it means it's easier to pick out anything which is in front of that mirror, such as these gnats. And if you watch bats when they're hunting over water, as we did the other night, you can see how this one has come into the boathouse. It's raining outside, you can hear the rain, there's probably dimples over the water, it can't see its food. And this could be a Dorbenton's bat. They frequently hunt over water like this, and you can see it dipping down, perhaps drinking, perhaps taking insects. But then, of course, having located the insect, you've got to catch it. How does the bat do that? Well, it doesn't only make these clicks in a regular ordered pattern. So what we've got here, Michaela, is a sonogram of a bat moving through its environment. Each one of these single clicks is a sort of navigating click. So it's flying along, it's sending out a click, this is sending back broad information about its environment. But look, as it progresses here, all of a sudden we get a rapid burst of little clicks like this. And I think we can hear this as well. Let's listen to this. So there are the clicks. And all of it, suddenly at the end, there's that raspberry. Just one more time. You know, click, 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 click. So it's click, 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 click. And the little at the end is an increased sampling rate. So what the bats are doing is they're moving along like this, and then there's an increase in sampling that's giving them more information about the prey that they've located, and it's then that they catch it. And we can see them doing this. Here are greater horseshoe bats. They've located these beetles and these moths. They've increased their sampling rate to give all the detail in the environment, the shape of the insect, exactly where it is, and then they're cupping them in their wings and scooping them up into their mouths. What about that?
I love bats. I actually really enjoy bats, so much so, look, I've got a batty T-shirt on today.
Batty lady with a batty T-shirt.
I think they're great bats. I love going out at night with my bat detector and listening to them. They're not quite as fancy as the one you use, though. But of course, bats aren't the only mammals that hunt at night. So do our foxes. Although I have to say, these two little cubs aren't actually hunting. They're practicing hunting. Some people will call it play even. You can see they're bouncing, they're chasing. This is exactly what they're going to have to do when they're adults. Interesting fact, though, about foxes. A recent survey has said that numbers have declined by 34% between 1995 and 2015. That's a huge decline. And that's because of a decline in rabbits caused by myxomatosis, a new virus that is really affecting rabbits, and, of course, shooting as well. But that's a lot, isn't it? 34%.
Yeah, that is significant. I mean, we're seeing an increase in some city numbers, so urban fox numbers have steadily grown, but in the rural environment, as that study has shown, foxes are actually declining. And actually, I don't see as many foxes when I'm out and about wandering around in the countryside as I used to when I was a kid. That's subjective. The BTO's data means that it's empirical.
Now, Martin has been on a road trip, and last week we saw him in Scotland. Well, Gillian has joined him this week, and they're in the Isles of Scilly.
Yes, here we are. Michaela, we've actually made it. We're on the glorious Isles of Scilly. Here they are. There's about 145 islands down here. 5 of them are inhabited by humans, and many of the others are inhabited by wonderful wildlife. Look at them. There's Briar, there's Samson, after which my son named is... That didn't come out quite right, did it?
Sounds very poetic, actually.
Very poetic. And this is an area of outstanding natural beauty, as you can see. And also, legend has it that King Arthur lies in a tomb out there, not dead, but waiting to come back, to rise up in Britain's hour of greatest need. What do you think of that?
Better that.
Go on, top that.
This is the place of pirates and shipwrecks. Sailors that come across the Atlantic make first landfall here. They shelter from Atlantic storms. But this maze of islands and islets and rocky outcrops are a haven for seabirds. They are so difficult to get through, but the wildlife love it. And there you have the shags, oyster catchers, ringed plovers. It is a fine, fine destination for birders.
It is, isn't
beautiful.
it? A lot of birders come here because you get real rarities here, don't you? I spent a lot of time in one of the bird hides over there. But let's see exactly where we are. Now, this has been our tour all around the country. I don't know if you can see that. I hope it's not overlit. There's, oh, hang on. There's Sherborne. And we went up to see Iolo in North Wales. And then we went all the way up to Scotland to do the beavers and the pine martins. And now we're down here. Right down there in the Scilly Isles. Let's have a closer look at where the Scilly Isles are, what they look like. Here are all the inhabited ones there. You can see all these tiny ones all dotted around full of wildlife. Terribly dangerous for shipping, of course, over the years. And we're here on Tresco, and Gillian and I are standing almost exactly there. Now, when you come to Tresco, they're famous for their gardens. And of course, there's all sorts of what look like subtropical plants growing here. It's extremely beautiful. The colours. You get a lot of succulents here as well. Look at that. I've seen one of those in Mexico. Lots and lots of exquisite... People come here just to see the beautiful plants that grow here. And you get lovely insects. There's a thing called the Scilly bee, which I've never seen. But it's an exotic place, and it's going to get a lot more exotic. Gillian.
It's not just the plants. There's some surprisingly exotic animals here. And I've got one right here. And I've got a little challenge for you. I don't know if you can see this. So we're going to just move in. And hopefully, if you've got a sharp eye, you should start to be able to see it right there. There it is. That's a stick insect. Now these are called phasmids. They're so called from the Greek word phasma, which means phantom or apparition. And I think it's doing a pretty good job of that. And right now, it's doing, apart from camouflage, it's showing its other defense mechanism. It's doing this kind of gentle swaying. If I blow on it, it might do it a bit more. But it does that to not just look like a stick, but like a stick blowing gently in the breeze. I think that's so clever.
It's absolutely fabulous, isn't it? I have to say, Gillian, I've spent literally hours looking for these over here, and I've never ever found one. But our hero, Chris Timmins, found this one.
Legend.
Looking for it in 2 minutes. I'm so jealous.
I wish I could pretend that I found that, but okay.
Now, in fact, there are 4 different species of stick insect over here. This is the prickly stick insect. There's a smooth stick insect, the laboratory stick insect. What's the other one?
The Mediterranean.
Mediterranean. I forgot that. But it seems like the smooth and the prickly arrived here possibly 100 years ago in about 1909, and they've been living here ever since. And they reproduce, fascinatingly, by parthenogenesis, so which means that the female doesn't need a male at all. And in fact, with the prickly stick insect, they've never found a male. All that happens is the female lays eggs, and they are viable, they hatch out. So when they came over here, possibly with some plants from New Zealand, you only need one egg in that soil, and it could have founded the entire colony over here. But they're the most curious animals. It doesn't look like they're doing any harm here. They're invasive, but they don't appear to be causing any trouble as yet. So anyway, from one very exotic animal to another, because when you come back, Jill and I, we're going to leg it down to the beach, and we're going on an exotic beach comb. We'll see you later.
Michaela, when you were a child, did you keep stick insects in a jam jar with a loosely fitting lid in your bedroom, which escaped and clambered all the way down the stairs and climbed on top of your dad's Spitfire books in the front room?
I didn't, but let me guess, you did.
I think many kids do. They actually are a good little animal, a good invert to keep. But from stick insects to barn owls. Now, look at this. Michaela, this is important. This is a field margin. This has got good old rough grass in it. Look, here. This is a place where mammals can live, voles can live, alongside this hedgerow here. This is what we like to see on farms, because if you've got this sort of habitat, then you can sustain barn owls. We've been looking for our barn owls tonight, and we can go live now to our cameras. Let's take a look at what Pete's got. Has Pete found one of our hunting owls? Nothing yet. Potential prey there in the foreground. Mind you, if a barn owl takes a sheep, it'll be a world first. OK, let's see what Mark's got over by the barn. There's the barn, all that dock in the foreground. Again, good hunting ground, of course, for these animals. They need these rough patches. If you've got improved pasture, grass which is, you know, has herbicide put on it, it's constantly harrowed, there's no dead leaf litter. I mean, this is what small mammals need. They need this, they need to be able to hide under this sort of stuff. Without this, no mammals, no barn owls.
Well, if the barn owl isn't out and about, let's see if it's back in the barn, in the nest. It's not, so it must be around. The chicks are there, obviously. Remember, we've got 3 chicks, very different sizes. They're all huddled together a bit there, but there's a 21-day-old chick, 16-day-old chick, 13-day-old chick. And if we have a look at what they've been getting up to, you'll be able to see that size difference. It's quite dramatic. And we've been very concerned about that little one. But maybe we shouldn't be, because let's watch the feeding. There's been a lot of food coming in. There's been shrews coming in. That one goes to the middle chick. Bank vole comes in. Or is that the shrew? I think that's the shrew, that one. And that gets fed to one of the chicks. Oh, this is the bank vole, look, and that gets fed to the big chick, the large chick. But you can hear the youngest one is screeching away for food. The louder it screeches, the more likely it is to be fed by the adult. You can see it's trying to feed itself.
Nibbling an old vole there, isn't it?
It's not coping terribly well. Look at the big chick, though. Down in one. But now listen to it, screeching away. And what's quite encouraging is the mother comes in and she shelters that little one and she tries to feed it. It takes the food, but that big one is having none of it and pulls it away. And the little one goes hungry that time. Don't worry though, because there's more food coming in. They've been amazing, these 2 adults. And just look at this, Chris. It is trying to get this prey down.
It's trying to swallow a shrew whole.
In one gulp. And look, just watch the wings, because the wings, they start flapping. It's like, come on, get it down. And remarkably,
yes, gets it down.
It does, just with a tiny little bit sticking out. Do you know what that reminds me of? It's like, I couldn't eat another thing, isn't it?
Mr. Creosote.
Mr. Creosote, I couldn't eat another thing.
Let's call him Little Creosote.
Little Creosote.
Let's call that owlet Little Creosote.
But good for him, eh? I mean, I'm pleased to see that that's happening.
It is good. Now, last night we were offering some conjecture as to how many prey items they would have to bring in order to keep that little one alive. Now, we said 16. 3 each for the adults. We may not see those. They might eat them outside the barn. But 10 brought in to those youngsters to sustain them. Guess how many came in today?
8.
Well, last night.
8.
Actually, 9.
9.
One off. And we were being...
Good.
No, it is pretty good. And we were being pretty generous with that as well, leaving 4 chicks for that, 4 prey items for that largest chick. So I think they're still doing OK at the moment. He's in with a chance, Mr. Little Creosote.
Mr.
Little Creosote.
Let's take a look at one of our other birds of prey. Let's have a look at them live. Here we go, these are the red kites, and they're actually in a very different part of the estate than we are. In fact, they're slightly out of the estate in a wood, but look at them, resting in the gorgeous evening light. There are 3 chicks there, 4.5 weeks old, and they've really grown. But let's have a look at what they've been getting up to, because if you just glance at them, you could think that they were adults until the adult comes in. You see the size difference, and you see
Due southwest from land.
Link on our
over the unique landscape of the mystical Somerset Levels. In a country garden stands an ancient holm oak tree. High up,